Lebanon's Akkar region has been devastated by last week's deadly fuel tank blast. At least 28 people were killed in the rush for fuel and about 80 others injured. The tragedy overwhelmed medical facilities and caused protracted power cuts, deepening the misery of a nation already battling severe fuel shortages and still reeling from last year's enormous explosion at the Beirut port. For the average Lebanese, economic recovery cannot happen soon enough. Well, the African Muslim Agency has been providing humanitarian relief in the country. Its regional chair, Hassan Choonara, joins us now. Mr. Choonara, thanks so much for joining us. Two major blasts in a year, just a year apart. How desperate is the situation there on the ground?
Well, Annika, as you put it, Lebanon's still reeling from the effects of the blast just over a year ago. Compounded with that, you have an ever-increasing COVID-19 pandemic crisis, and you have the Syrian and Palestinian refugees living in Lebanon in the various camps, whether it be in Akkar, which you mentioned, which we'll tackle shortly, inshallah, and as well as in Asal, as well as the Palestinian refugees. And together with that, you have an overburdening situation, the complete economic crisis with no fuel, a shortage of basic commodities as a result of the fuel crisis, no electricity, and with the blast in Akkar just over a week ago, hospital, sadly, a place where people go to receive urgent medical care, affected and unable to treat the wounded coming in and those affected from the blast.
I mean, the situation on the ground seems, as you describe it, pretty dire. What are the immediate needs of people living there?
Well, it's complex. Obviously, you have people right now. You have, right now the African Muslim Agency is assisting hospitals, 4 hospitals across Lebanon with solar power units. So that will obviously result in the medical equipment that's needed to treat patients, whether it be in operating rooms, whether it be general wards, to be up and running, and obviously will benefit the hospital long into the future. That's the immediate focus right now. As well as we have a bakery running in the Bekaa area of Lebanon, providing about 4,000 bread bags to identified refugee families living in the camps, as well as Dignity 10 projects where we build, rehabilitated campsites for refugees living in the outskirts. You have the refugees obviously drawing from the resources of the country, as well as the Lebanese people who are in need. We're also assisting many Lebanese families, like you mentioned, the blast. Many of them not yet back on their feet. And so the organization, the teams on the ground assisting the families with their homes, with psychosocial services support, because many of them have experienced trauma, many of them have lost loved ones. And this is critical in trying to create a society of normality under this difficult circumstances.
What about water supply? UNICEF has issued a report saying their supply systems are on the verge of collapse.
Absolutely, and our teams have been watching that report and assessing the situation. Speaking to our teams on the ground yesterday, this topic came up about water supply. Right now, there is water, however, very limited. As you can imagine, for energy and other sources, water has been used. And right now, there is, but very limited supply, and we're monitoring the situation. And already measures have been put in place to ensure that the most affected areas will receive water supply as best we can. Obviously, withdrawing from the resources within Lebanon and from Beirut and other towns. And we are monitoring this situation hourly.
You also have a team assisting in Afghanistan, where at least 85 people were killed in an attack on Kabul airport yesterday. How many civilians were impacted, and what's the situation there on the ground? What are you hearing from your field workers?
Well, the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan is the result of 4 decades of conflict, and yesterday's explosion further compounded a very complex and a very burdening, challenging situation in Afghanistan, and more specific Kabul. Over 90 civilian people have lost their lives, together with 13 or that number about Marines from foreign forces, right now that's already adding to the and many other scores injured. Our teams on the ground are continuing with their work on the outskirts in terms of the bowls and general relief. However, the last few days and weeks, we're monitoring the situation to see best how we can continue with the general relief of those families that have come from the outskirts of Mazar Sharif, Kandahar, and other areas coming to Kabul for assistance. And right now, the teams are monitoring the situation, and hopefully we can, in the next few days, as things simmer down and we pray for peace, we can further extend the assistance to all those who are in Kabul and other areas in terms of livelihood kits, medical assistance, food assistance, etc.
Very quickly, and last question, do you have any South Africans in Afghanistan who are desperate to get out and that you can assist at all?
Not at the moment. Our team is mainly made up of local Afghan people, and obviously they every day they check their day, where it's possible to go, where it's not possible to go. It's a volatile situation, it's a fluid situation, as you've seen yesterday. But at the moment, no, we don't have any South Africans who are part of the team in Kabul.
All right, good luck for that mercy flight to Lebanon, where you'll be helping those people injured in that fuel attack. Hassan Choonara of the Africa Muslim Agency.